Good day. Want to recap our discussion about what is freedom and then preview or review rather the readings and ed puzzle you did on how do you become free. So first, what is freedom? In your responses, a number of you talked about how freedom entails knowledge, awareness, that it's a capacity. So it was great to hear you reflect on that. A lot of it is comes from something within. Sometimes it's outside of ourselves. So it was great to hear those insights in the paired deck in your emails. Um, just to come full circle, though, the course notes focused on this quote from the Catechism, talking about that the more you do what is good, the freer you become. And there's no freedom except in the service of what is good and just. So that speaks a lot about a capacity and about that ability. And it also speaks a lot about how to become free. And so, what one talks about how it's kind of like this spiritual muscle that expands the more often we do the good, the freer we become. And secondly, it's also like, what's our goal or our purpose? And we're going to focus on that today in today's reading about the first principle and foundation, that the goal of our life is to live with God forever. And so our freedom is directed towards that goal. And our ability to live that out grows. So, if I lied yesterday, the day before, it's just going to be easier for me to lie again. But if I am courageous, it's going to be easier in the future for me to be courageous. So it's kind of like this snowball effect or this fundamental option. So freedom, we can kind of build a momentum towards becoming more and more free. So let's dig a little deeper into that. Today's question is, how do you become free? So the first reading was from Dr. Randall Colton, and it was called Censorship. And the one thing that he underscores is that freedom just doesn't happen. Freedom just doesn't happen because I want it. And freedom doesn't just happen because I show up. There's a lot of work I have to do, a lot of spiritual work that I have to do. And so some suggestions he talks about is that one, just like we training for an academic discipline or a physical discipline, we have to train ourselves to be free. That's really what like the gift of St. Ignatius and the spiritual exercise is all about. It's about a program in becoming more and more free to do God's will. And there's a formation process. So, like reflecting daily on our day and how did God find us in the examen. And at the end of the day, focusing on gratitude. Those are all ways that we form ourselves. Last but not least, is there are boundaries. So, when I first met my wife, and we were married, I would go through all these snooze buttons and I'd sleep. And so the whole process of my initial alarm to when I finally got out of bed took about 15, 20 minutes. My wife was like, we can't do this. This isn't going to work. And so what's happened is that my, I have changed the way that I prepare for bed. I've changed the way that I wake up. And so like now I try to get off technology an hour before bedtime. I also wake up without an alarm. And so it's like these certain boundaries, like, okay, after 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, I'm an old man, no technology. That's a boundary. And so it's like, and what that's done is given me the capacity or the ability to wake up without an alarm. It's given me the capacity or ability to wake up when I choose. Desires. So Father James Martin in the Ed Puzzle talked about desires, and it was a lot about vocation and our calling, but it's also just about if we pay attention to what we truly want, that's going to direct us towards the path of freedom, to the good. Because what? If we dig down deep and we sift through all the desires, like I'm hungry, or I'm tired, or this or that, and to get down to the really what the desires are, we can become who God intends us to be, and we can be free to work towards that. So, for example, I've always had this desire to learn more about my own spiritual journey and my own who God's calling me to be. And so, like, when I paid attention to that, I went along the path of training to be a theology teacher. But at first, when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to make my parents happy, or I just wanted to make a lot of money. And all those things are not bad in themselves. But when I got down to the deeper desire, I really wanted to be involved and participate in the formation of students, to be with them, to learn about themselves, to and for me to learn about them. And so I had to ask my self questions: why am I doing this? And that freed me up to do that. Last but not least, one thing you're going to work on today in class and over the weekend for the Freedom Project, which has been revised, is you're going to do a balance examen. So we can do an examen on our day, and then we can do an examen on a particular item. And so, in the first principle of foundation, really what we're trying to do is approach our life, our decisions, our choices with a sense of balance. Like I could do this or I could do that. It's okay. Whatever God wants me to do. And so what you notice is in your day, there are certain times when you're not balanced, you're unfree. And like, for example, yesterday, someone said something to me and my feelings were hurt and I got really upset. So I was unfree because that hurt, that anger was distorting my thinking. And so I couldn't respond in kind. And then I was in a meeting also that same day, and I noticed that I was really open to what other people around me were saying. I felt really connected. I'm here to do whatever God wants me to do. That's an example of a free moment. And so, what if we get the proper formation, the proper boundaries, the proper training? In other words, we, in a sense, are physically doing the work, and then we pay attention to what we really want. Then we're going to be able to be more balanced in our life and be able to respond in kind and be generous. Those are a couple suggestions on how do I become free.